empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. It is Tuesday of Iowa week. We are getting ready to see the Hawkeyes fresh off of a bye week. The team is rested and energized. The coaches got their 1 day off of the entire season on Saturday. They could spend some time with their families. I know some of the coaches were grilling, watching that great Alabama game. They hit the road for some recruiting. A lot of these players went home, got to see the families, so they're nice and energized, rested up, get ready for Iowa, and then a big matchup in Happy Valley against Penn State. So we have all of that, and we have a ton of recruiting intel coming your way, courtesy of the great Bill Greene. But first, as always, we are thankful for you guys and grateful for you guys. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. We are cranking content like crazy. We had a little bit of time off last week, but we are back in full swing this week. So we appreciate you guys. If you enjoy this, please leave us a like, comment. What do you think of the spread? We are about 4 touchdown favorites versus Iowa. I don't know if that's high enough, but would you take the points or are you laying them and rolling with the Buckeyes? I don't know how Iowa scores more than 7 in this game, but I've been wrong before, but I think that this is going to be a pretty comfortable one for the Buckeyes per usual. With that being said, I'm going to bring in the great Bill the Bank Greene. Bank, how are you today?
Good, man. Hanging in there.
So the line is around 28-31.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how we don't cover that just because I don't think Iowa can run with us, and plus they can't score. How do you feel? I know that you don't have to get too in depth because I know you haven't done your prep and your game stuff, but initial, Tuesday vibes. What are your thoughts on that line? Is it about right? Is there any issue with Ohio State potentially covering that? I don't think there is, but I could be wrong. But
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was going to be 35 or 36, to be honest. When I saw that 29, it just didn't even look right. You just got to get used to these spreads being so high. Big Ten's so bad. They're bad. And I'm with you. I don't know how they score, and they're solid defensively like they always are. But are they solid defensively against a team like this? Would they be solid defensively against Alabama? Would they be solid defensively against Tennessee? They're solid defensively against, Wisconsin, Michigan State, those teams. But how the heck are they going to hold Ohio State? I would think it's going to be 31-3 at the half or something like that. So, no, I don't think it's enough points. Just my first look at this. I'm going to dig in deeper, but I don't know, man. I don't see how it's within 30 in the first half, the way Ohio State's rolling right now. We'll see. I don't know. Vegas doesn't give money away. I know that. So when something looks good and you can't wait to run to the window and put your money on it, you usually lose. So, but right now that looks pretty juicy to me to lay the 28, 29, 30 and think it'll be covered over by halftime.
Yeah. And you had one of the great examples of that on this past Sunday. It was an absolute bloodbath in Vegas due to the Buccaneers Steelers game. I know you're a big Steelers fan, Bank. I mean, right. Again, that was one where 98% of the money, according to Caesars, was on the Buccaneers and that money line. And then the Steelers, who looked like they were just a dead carcass in the water after what the Buffalo Bills did to them, come back and beat the Super Bowl champions. How surprised are you with that game, Bank?
Oh, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I mean, I think they stink, and I'm a fan, but I don't think they're any good. And on top of it, they had like 3 DBs out. They lost Kenny Pickett halfway through the game. They had to go back to Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, it was just a recipe to lose like 35-6 or something like that. But they pressured Tom Brady all day long, and that's what the game is right now. If you can get to those quarterbacks, they can't hurt you. But Pittsburgh, I mean, I was shocked. I was shocked by the Jets beating Green Bay and Lambeau. The Giants beat the Ravens. I mean, Atlanta beats the 49ers. Nothing makes sense in the NFL right now. The NFL's, they've always wanted parity, and man, they have parity right now. There isn't one team that can't beat another team in the NFL. So college football is still loaded at the top, but in the NFL, anybody can beat anybody on anyone else's field at any time.
And that's the crazy thing is because, like, if there's one team that's likely the Super Bowl favorite right now, it's the Buffalo Bills, correct? Josh Allen.
Yeah, sure. Buffalo and KC probably have separated themselves.
And the funny thing about Buffalo is they lost to Urban Meyer and Jacksonville last
Oh
year.
my God.
So I mean, like, again, like anytime you think that you've got it right, you're like Jacksonville's struggling. Jacksonville might go winless, and they beat Josh Allen, who's an MVP level quarterback, and that defense, and that's why the NFL is always fascinating to me because there are games like that in college. With Ohio State, 10 out of the 12 games, there's literally no drama. Like Ohio State's got to get ready to beat Penn State, and Penn State got exposed this weekend, and they got to get ready to beat Michigan. Like Michigan is like they're the one big name, big time program, not scared of Ohio State. Everyone else, as soon as they walk on the field against Ohio State, they're scared to death. And it's just, let's not make it too bloody on them, but I think that's interesting. We're going to spin into recruiting right now just because, when people hear the bank, they want to know the latest on the 3 defensive ends. So we're going to start Keon Keely. This one looks like it's trending away from us, Bank. What is the latest on Keon Keely?
Yeah, I felt when he came back to Ohio State for that second visit for the Wisconsin game, he was there, official visit for Notre Dame, not soon after decommitting from Notre Dame. By all accounts, that went fantastic. And then they were able to get him back a couple weeks later for a second visit on his dime. And that one to me indicated business. You know what I mean? The first one, fun and games, get to see Notre Dame and Ohio State, big game. The second one was business. But I really felt coming out of that he needed to cancel that Alabama visit. He had the official coming up to Bama. JTT went through the same thing a couple of years ago. I know you remember that. You were out at the airport when he showed up at Ohio State.
Yeah.
But he canceled on Bama, and the rest was history. So I really felt Ohio State needed Keely to cancel on Bama. There is a scuttlebutt rumor out there. I got it from someone in Florida that he has been silently committed to Bama for a while, which was fine, but I thought coming out of that second visit to Ohio State, they needed to land it, nail it, lock him up. Well, that didn't happen, so that gave me some pause there. And now it sure seems like Bama has that one, where they need it. Am I calling it the Bama done deal? No, I'm not. But I think they're going to get it. You know what I mean? But I don't think it's dead in the water yet for Ohio State. They're still fighting it. They went to school last week, so they're not giving up on it. But, gun to my head, I think Bama's going to get Keon Keely. I really do.
I got you. Well, on the upswing, Damon Wilson. This is a guy that you've been high on. You've been projecting him to OSU. And then we get the Fong Bomb. What are your thoughts on him? Is he in the fold? Fantastic tape. I mean, I love watching this guy on tape. He's a dynamo. But you feeling good about Damon Wilson at this point?
Yeah, I am. And as much as I'm not willing to shout it to the mountaintop that Keely's going to Bama, but I think he is, but that's in pencil for me. Same thing with Damon Wilson. I think Ohio State's going to get him, but it's kind of in pencil there. Georgia's tracking him. If I had to make a pick today, I would say Bama for Keely, OSU for Damon Wilson, but I don't think either of them are done deals right now. Just like Ryan Day and Larry Johnson not giving up on Keely, there's no way Georgia and Kirby Smart are walking away from Damon Wilson until he tells them to. So, right now, that's how I see things sitting with those two guys. And I would take either of them, both of them, whatever. The film on both kids is just off the chart to me. Couldn't really pick between the two. I'd take either of them. Just give me one of them, I'll be thrilled. Two of them, I'm breaking out champagne for the whole office.
Yeah, I think that'd be fantastic. We're gonna stick with it with Mateo Uiagalelei, one of my favorites. Obviously, I think he's got no clue right now. He had a loss. They had that big 1-2 game. His team came up on the short end of the stick. He's super focused on his high school schedule. They are projected to play them again in the state championship at the Rose Bowl. Anything new on Mateo? I think he's truly torn right now. I think he's focused on his senior year. Again, he could easily be a second signing day guy. It's what it looks like, it sounds like. But what are you hearing on Mateo at this point?
Yeah, it won't shock me if he's a first signing day guy, but I could see him delaying to the second. I don't think recruiting is at the forefront of him right now. He's seen everybody he needs to see. He's talking to everybody he needs to talk to. There's a great connection there with Larry Johnson. I think it started a couple of years ago. We were probably there when he showed up at Ohio State. So they're in a great spot for him. I think Oregon's in a great spot for him. I still think nobody talks about USC. I think USC's in this one from what I'm being told. He really wants to have a career in music in conjunction with football and then after football. And USC with Lincoln Riley, they're going to trot out Snoop Dogg, whoever they have to trot out for that kid is coming out. And they can recruit him down the block where Ohio State has to recruit him across the other side of the country. I think that's an advantage as well. So we'll see. If I had to make a pick right now, it'd just be throwing a dart at a board. I think Ohio State is right there. I think Oregon with Phil Knight, kind of, NIL and Phil Knight is just a match made in heaven.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And he's getting to the end of the line, and he's going to do whatever he's got to do to see Oregon loaded up, firmed up, ready to make a run. So I could see that happening as well. And then the USC with the music thing, I could see. But Ohio State, Larry Johnson would be a great father figure to that kid. Get him in the NFL. Talk about the Bosa's, Chase Young, what I've done for them. So there's a lot of angles here. There's a lot of things going on here now that I couldn't make a pick on this one. But I can tell you Ohio State is definitely in it. They're definitely in this one. And, you just see how it goes.
Yeah, I think for the positives for Ohio State, Larry Johnson has deep roots with Big Dave, and Big Dave used to work with Larry Johnson Jr., did bodyguard work. So they've got, that's like kind of one of those ironic twists. Dave's brother runs a company called The Front, which is a D-line training company. All of their drills are literally off of Larry Johnson's like training tapes. So, I mean, like Mateo's been doing LJ's drills since he was 10 years old. So that's their, so at the end of the day, like you talked about with DJ, you want your kid to be developed when he's is a prime of a prospect as Mateo is, because this is big business. This is huge business. There's a reason why Quinn Ewers went to Texas. It's because of Steve Sarkisian. Steve Sarkisian put Mac Jones, Tua, coached Matt Ryan. He's coached some of the best quarterbacks in the league in college football. The guys that he had at USC that were fantastic. So it's a big business. So, when you're Mateo, that little NIL money is great, but if you can get developed and be a 3-and-out guy like JT2 Malone is looking like he's going to be, and then you've got the underlying deal with, the relationship between, his mom and Monica Johnson. DJ and Paris Johnson were really tight at the Army All-American game. Those two moms hit it off and were friends. And, there's no bigger advocate in the world for Ohio State football than Monica Johnson, who's Paris Johnson's mom. Or Monica Daniels, excuse me. Sorry, Monica, if you listen to this. Monica Daniels, because she married my boy Mike Daniels, who's coaching at Georgia Tech now. But, there's all these little kind of funny little underlying things that make me feel good about Ohio State. There's all these little, stability things. And like I said, I don't think LJ's tank is close to E. People think that LJ's going to retire. I'm like, he's making $900,000 to coach the D line, and his D line room is loaded. He's not coaching Akron. He's coaching monsters. So it's like, why would you give up now when your room is stocked and you get to do what you love and you're making $1 million a year? It's like, I'm not doing that. It's like
fun. You can watch him at camp, how he works with those kids, how energized he is, how much he loves working with young people. And that's, he can go ahead and retire. What are you going to do? You don't hit so many golf balls. You can only do so much woodworking. He's, affecting young people's lives. Why would you walk away from that? I don't see, he doesn't look like a guy ready to retire at all to me.
No. We saw, kind of Urban when he was at the end of the line at Ohio State, his health was deteriorating. He was, really he didn't look good. Larry Johnson, I think looks better than ever because I think he's lost some weight. I think he's really energized because he has a really good D-line. I think that Jim Knowles is really trying to, empower his guys and make these guys, give these guys more free access to rush. The guys that I know in that building that are playing for LJ and playing for Knowles, it's like heaven on earth if you're a really good pass rushing defensive end. So it's, again, I don't, these guys aren't handcuffed like they were in the old system. So, I think that gives a lot of life, and it helps Larry recruit when he says, hey, Mateo, you like to do your spin move? You can do it now. The old days, you couldn't do that. You get benched. So it's a different world now. We're going to move on to Caleb Downs. Long shot. I know that you got the little whispers about the Michigan game, bank any thought or feeling on Caleb Downs at this point?
Well, there's communication with Ohio State. I guarantee you that. To me, this is going to be really easy. And you're going to know all you need to know about Caleb Downs. If he shows up for the Michigan game, then I'm going to call him to Ohio State the minute that plane hits and his feet get off that plane in Columbus. I'm calling him to Ohio State. There is conversation there, but, we'll see. He shows up for Michigan, he's coming to Ohio State. He doesn't show up on campus, then he's going to Bama. So I think this one's really cut and dried, and I think the rubber's going to meet the road the weekend of the Michigan game. You know what I mean? He shows up then, he's in. And if he doesn't show up then, I don't know what weekend, why would you come another weekend? You know what I mean? I think that's the one. So there is communication. The line's open. We'll see what happens here. But to me, that's how I'm going to follow that one. Shows up for the Michigan game, he's in. He doesn't, he's probably not coming to Ohio State.
Yeah, that's I think it's one that you keep all these guys warm just because like the reason why you keep recruiting these guys is because what if Nick Saban retires? Now I'm not saying that he will, and it could never happen, but like Chip Kelly, when Chip Kelly left Oregon and went to the Eagles, we got Dontre Wilson. Like Dontre Wilson told us to buzz off, but we kept recruiting him. And then all of a sudden, there's changes. And again, I know Nick, and I love Nick Saban. I think he's fantastic. But yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, he does things the right way. His players play it the right way. His guys, they're tough as nails. They're the one team that nobody wants to see. But that being said, anything can happen. They could have some show cause from the NCAA show up, and again, you never know. I've just seen it before. It's like when Brian Kelly takes off from Notre Dame, and we can go poach some of their guys. I mean, and the way the NFL moves and how guys leave jobs now, and nobody at this point last year when Brandon Inniss was committed to Oklahoma thought that Lincoln Riley was going to be coaching at USC, but it happened. Yeah. So, Brandon Inniss flipped and came to the good guys, but you never know. And this one's going to be interesting. You got Mark Fletcher on here. He's solid. I know that there's the funny Miami NIL stuff. I love that kid's tape.
Yeah, me too. I'm feeling a lot better about him as time goes on. I mean, Miami made one heck of a run at him with, a heck of an NIL proposal and turned it down. So I think at this point he's pretty solid with Ohio State. You always worry that they'll come in with some sort of crazy LeBron James money offer or something. Miami wants him, but I think they've even realized that we're not getting this kid. Let's go attack another running back somewhere else. So, I think the time for Mark Fletcher to flip to Miami, take the big NIL money would have been in the last 8 weeks. I don't think it's going to be now, unless they come in with some, crazy off the chart offer, which they haven't done yet. And I kind of tend to think Miami and Mark Fletcher maybe have moved away. And I think Ohio State is really locked in here. Really feel good about it.
Yeah, that's great. I think he could be a guy that could be a Mayan. Like, Mayan was a guy that he didn't have the stars next to his name, but he's an absolute bull in the running game, and he is a joy to watch because he punishes guys.
Yeah, but I think Mark Fletcher can do more things. More things
absolutely.
In the passing game, more things in break and long runs. I love Mayan Williams. What he's done, he's turned himself into he's gotten the most out of what he has.
Yes,
and that's all you can ask of a player. You know what I mean? Whatever your ceiling is, get me as close to your ceiling as you can. And that's what Mayan's done. But I think Mark has a little bit more raw. He's faster. I think he's more athletic. He's got better hands. But he can do all the hammer stuff that Mayan can do too.
Yeah, I think and when I meant that, I meant it more as when we look back, we'll think, how is he rated as low as he was, as opposed to... Right. It was kind of like I literally sat in the staff room in 2012, and Urban Meyer, we all had sheets of paper where we had to grade. We would grade each position group, the top 10 guys at each position, and we broke down running backs. And number one in the country by everybody was Derek Green. He was out of Virginia. He went to Curtis Grant's high school. Terrible football. But he was a kid that wore 27, loved Eddie George. His grandpa loved Eddie George. We offered him when he was young. He looked like LaDainian Tomlinson on film.
He was rocked up at 15 years old. He was rocked up.
Yeah, and like so, I'm thinking that like he's the guy, or he's good, but you watch his film and like he doesn't really dominate against bad competition, and it's like And then we watched Ezekiel, who played like he played in like 6A, which is like a dinky small division in Missouri, and he's playing against like all these like these like little Christian schools, and like Ezekiel's out there running for 350 yards every game and hurdling past guys, and you got to make that eval based on they're both playing bad ball, but one is absolutely dominating, the other one isn't. So, it was, and like Ezekiel was a nicer kid. He was clean cut. I mean, really good family. And, and I remember seeing Drayden was like, I like him better than Derek Green. Screw it. So, screw the rankings. Like, I wanted Ezekiel to be my guy. And, we took Zeke, and, the rest is history, obviously. But it was like, like I think sometimes that, when I, and obviously, did we want Richard Young and these other guys? Of course. But it's like, I think like when you get a guy like Fletcher, he could end up being like an Ezekiel, like where he wasn't rated the number one guy like Derek Green was, but Derek Green went to Michigan, then he went to Florida, and then he kind of just flamed out and never to be heard from again. And Ezekiel's still playing in the league after, 7 or 8 years or whatever it is. And, it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. I'm going to move to a couple questions from the board, because this is a really good one. I like this one. So this guy, Bandit01, was born in 82. So his formative years were not fun during Thanksgiving weekends, which again, I was born in 84. So I know exactly what he's talking about. The mid 90s getting smoked by Michigan. Am I overreacting with being as nervous as I am about Michigan? Bank, I'll let you take that one. Is he overreacting to being nervous about Michigan?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that's part of the fun part of sports. If you don't get a little hyped up and a little juiced up, what's the point of following? You know what I mean? Anything can happen. I mean, I don't think Michigan is as good as they were last year. And I think Ohio State is better than they were last year. And when you beat somebody 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years in a row, and you had some blowouts in there where Ohio State just annihilated them, I think the Ohio State program got a little soft, got a little cocky. Michigan came in last year as just, we're coming for blood. And they had a great game plan. And everything Michigan did well last year were things Ohio State didn't do well. It was a great matchup for Michigan last year. This year, I just don't think, and Michigan has that same slim path to victory. You know what I mean? They don't have the dynamic wide receivers. Ronnie Bell's a really nice player. They got some really nice players. They're not All-Americans like Ohio State has. So they're not going to be able to throw for 350 on Ohio State, which I think is the way to beat Ohio State. I want to attack those corners and those DBs. I'm going to make them cover me. They can't do that. So they have that path of last year. They line up. They're going to smash Blake Corum. They're going to smash Edwards. But I think Ohio State is more equipped to stop that. Where last year Ohio State couldn't. They were soft. I know nobody wants to hear that. They were soft. And Michigan just ground them up, ate them up. Had the ball 4 times in the second half, 4 long scoring drives. There were no trick plays out of Michigan last year. They just lined up and crushed Ohio. They can't do that this year. Ohio State's built differently this year. And again, I mean, are you concerned? Always concerned. Upsets happen. But if Michigan beats Ohio State this year, it will be an upset. I'm expecting that spread to be 14, 15, 16, somewhere in that range. So, I think Ohio State is clearly the better team. They're at home. They have revenge. They got a lot of things going for them this year. But it's still, it's not Madden. You play it out there on the field. So I think Ohio State has a lot of ways to win. I think Michigan has a small path to win. And we'll see what happens. That's why we play.
Oh, I'm always nervous about Michigan, unless it is just like one of those like Rich Rod in 2008 years where they got the wrong guys, the wrong system. They're 2-8 or whatever, and then Ohio State just beats them by 55 in the horseshoe or whatever. Like, but that ain't this year. And again, like I lived it, and I used to tell my mom every year, look, we get ready to go play Michigan. If we lose, I will not be home for Thanksgiving. And I apologize, but I'm not coming home because I don't want to face anybody and I don't want to hear it. So thankfully, I never lost. So I was able to enjoy it because we used to play them the week before Thanksgiving. So we'd win, and it was like going home for Thanksgiving was like the greatest thing in the universe because you're like the conquering hero. Because I'm a kid that grew up in the '90s. I saw my heroes Orlando Pace and Eddie George get bludgeoned by Michigan, and it's like so I always had that fear before every game. I had that anxiety, especially like my senior year when I was the captain and I lost Anthony Gonzalez and TJ and Troy Smith and Pittman and like all these guys that were like my guys that I played with, and I was like the last guy left. And so we were going up to Ann Arbor, and I was a psychopath all week because I was not. I mean, and again, I'm not Beanie Wells. Beanie Wells ran for 200 yards in that game. It's like I made sure that our guys we weren't walking into a fist fight in Ann Arbor because like the problem is like when you haven't lost here in forever, you think it's easy, and then you play Michigan State, you beat them by 60 points. Michigan State somehow beat Michigan last year. And then you show up to Ann Arbor and, it's Aiden Hutchinson's senior day and it's like all these guys' senior day. And, I knew like when you're Ohio State and you go into Ann Arbor, it's always their senior day. So there's always a really big emotional spectacle on top of it being the Ohio State Michigan game. So those guys are always going to be jazzed up. And like, when I played, they had Manningham and Braylon Edwards. I mean, they had guys that like, they're throwing it deep to those guys. So it's like, you got to make sure you guys are on point because it's tough. And I think it was a good wake up call for the guys last year that you can't walk into that game. You can't walk into a fist fight because, those guys can save their entire season by beating you, like period. And they can ruin yours and send you to the stupid Rose Bowl that nobody cares about instead of the playoffs. And, and then they get to go to the playoffs. Now, granted, they played Georgia and they kind of got theirs, but if we played like if we played defense, then like Georgia showed what we should have been able to do to those guys, but it didn't happen. But
you got to be able to make the team do things they don't want to do. What they wanted to do was smash that ball right out of Ohio State. Well, if you get 1 yard on first down and you get 2 yards on second down, you're 3rd and 7. You're not smashing that. At that point, you're throwing against my blitz. Well, we couldn't get him. If you go back and look at those stats, Kirk, of last year's Michigan-Ohio State game, they always talk about like third down efficiency. Mm-hmm. Defensively, you want to be so good on third down. How many times did Michigan have third down in that game? And they had the ball a lot.
God, what was it like 3 for 5 or something ridiculous?
Something like that.
You
couldn't even get them to third down. They didn't have that many third downs. They were running for 9 on first down, and then it's so easy for you. Yeah, I think they only had 5 or 6 third down plays. You can have 5 third down plays on the opening drive. They had 5 or 6 for the whole game. I mean, it was just total domination. I wrote a piece. It's still on our site. You'd have to go back to the date. The morning of the game, I talked to somebody in Michigan the night before. We were talking about recruiting a kid in Ohio they were interested in. And I said, what's the feeling for tomorrow? And they said, we're coming. They better be ready because it's going to be a fist fight. And I laid out everything the guy said. I wrote it on our board. It's still there.
Oh,
Everybody kind of laughed about it. And I even laughed about it. It wasn't me making a prediction of what I thought was going to happen. It was them telling me what they thought was going to happen. And man, it was like point. When you go back and read it now, it's an amazing, and it's nothing I did. I just transcribed the darn thing. I didn't predict anything, come up with anything. And it was point. And man, they scripted it the night before. Harbaugh told his team exactly what they were going to do. I'm sure you've been in those situations before where Tressel told you we're going to do this, and this. And then when it happens, it's the most satisfying thing in the world. So I don't think that can happen this year. I don't think you sneak up on Fat Cat Ohio State this year.
Well, I just here's the thing. The one thing I do know is that my freshman year when I redshirted, I didn't travel to Ann Arbor, and they lost. So the seniors, like Will Smith and Krenzel and all those guys went up there and lost in 2003. And I just remember how miserable it was around that building and around the town when you lose to Michigan. So it's like that next year we stunk. We were 8-4, which is a lot of losses for Ohio State. And we were like 14-point dogs at home against Michigan. But like we came out and like, we had guys like AJ Hawk and Schlegel, and the guy that we really had was Troy Smith. Like Troy Smith just put us on his back, broke their backs with scrambling. San Antonio Holmes was fantastic, and Teddy and Gonzo, and and again, like, but it just takes like an insane effort to win that game. And it's like, it doesn't matter how good you are, it takes an insane effort to win that game. And like, I think that when you beat them 20 times in a row or whatever, minus the 2011 game, like you lose some of that edge because you just think, oh, it's going to be a cakewalk again because we've done it so many times. But, like I said, it only takes one time for you to slip up and, get just not have that edge,
Like Woody said, getting your butt kicked really cleanses your soul,
Oh God, it's nothing will recalibrate. It's because honestly, I think that's why Bama's going to go on a run here because when they lose that game and they got to see it on SportsCenter every day, the orange all over the field and
yeah, we suck now. They're no good.
Oh yeah, okay. We'll see. Like I was like, how many national champions have we seen where they lose one early? It was like Georgia. Like Georgia lost the SEC championship last year, came back and won the Natty. Same team played Bama again. And it's like, it's just you see it, and then teams say, "Oh, Bama beat Georgia for the SEC championship," and then they get to the championship and things change.
Well, Nick's going to have their attention for the next couple of weeks.
Oh, he's gonna have he's gonna have their souls for the next couple of weeks. Like I'm telling you, like
they're either gonna be good enough or they're not. But anybody thinks Bama's wounded and done, and please, and when you win as many championships as they do, they've got that championship DNA. Like the other day, they had everything. They lost that game on the last play. They didn't get beat 52-10. It wasn't like Ohio State and Iowa or Ohio State Purdue. It took every single thing to go wrong for them to just lose at the buzzer. And now he's got their attention. Tennessee couldn't play any better. Alabama couldn't have played any sloppier. And they lost by 3 in Tennessee. So don't count them out yet. A little early to throw dirt on Alabama.
Well, and times. Bama had 17 penalties. I don't know if a team has ever won a football game in the history of football with 17 penalties, unless it's like the Miami Hurricanes in the 80s playing against Vanderbilt or something. It's like, or they're just up by so much that they're taunting and all the stupid things. I've never seen a team with 17 penalties win. So it's like, again, it was a weird game, but again, I don't think we've heard the last of the Tide. This is another good question. My man KF21 3003, is the lack of sack production among our defensive ends negatively impacting our recruiting efforts at the defensive end position with Keely and Mateo? I know what you're going to say. I know what I'm going to say. Go ahead and go. You can go first, Bank.
No, heck no. No, not at all. It's a comfort and relationship thing. And Ohio State, at any time, Larry Johnson can pull out his dossier and, whose film do we want to put in? Joey or Nick or Chase? And he can call them all by first name, too. When you can call your guys by the first name only, one name, you've done a pretty good job. No, that has nothing to do with anything. No, it's comfort in relationships. Make them feel that you can make their dreams come true. If this is a place you can win a national championship, which it is. And, and again, when you talk about going after these defensive ends, you are not recruiting against Michigan State, Purdue, and Indiana for these kids. These kids are all being, it's Bama, it's Georgia. With Mateo, you got USC and the movie crowd you're fighting. With Oregon, it's Phil Knight getting in his 70s now, and he wants a championship bad. He's not worried about money. He can now do real NIL instead of the fake NIL they've been doing up there. So you're going against the best of the best right now. But no, I think Ohio State is, the lack of sack production will have nothing to do with recruiting Mateo and Damon Wilson and Keon Keely. 0.
Yeah. I mean, if there's anything that would ever do is say, hey, look, if you want to come in and be a situational pass rusher, come on in. You'll be great. You'll be the first guy in on third down, and that's that. But I mean, again, I don't. There's nothing to that. And by the way, our boy Phil Knight is 84.
Oh, he is. I thought he was in his 70s.
No, he's 84. So I mean, he's not buying green bananas at this point. So it's like,
I love the guy too. I mean,
I love him too. I mean,
if you want to read a book and you have time, the book Shoe Dog.
Oh yeah.
Is the most amazing life story you could ever want to read. And you talk about hard work, perseverance, never giving up, stick to it, all that stuff. I read Phil Knight's book, and I know the ending, as you do. We know who he is today. But to see who he was at 25, at 30, at 35, going through what he went through, and I'm thinking to myself, just quit. Give it up. And I know he's a billionaire now. And I know how the ending, it was too painful to watch all the things he went through in his life to get to being Phil Knight. And, amazing story. If you want to read a book to be inspired about hard work and never giving up and fighting for your dreams, that is the book to read.
Yeah, I was lucky enough. I tailgate.
I don't know how we got off on that, but
it's because he's the man. I tailgated with him before the 2018 Ohio State Michigan game, the game where Haskins, we had like 62 points. He was at Shelly Meyer's tailgate. Wow. So I stopped by, I talked to him for about a half hour because he was like one of my heroes. So I was talking to him, and he had this Ohio State Nike hat on that was all black. The logo was completely black. Wow. And I was like, I love your hat. That's unbelievable. And he's like, he gave me his card and told me to email him. Now, I'm sure he didn't read the email. I'm sure the secretary did, but he sent me one of those hats. Wow. So it was like the coolest thing ever. Cause it's like, oh my God, Phil Knight sent me a hat. Cause like I said, and he was in the locker room after the game, and Urban used to fly. I mean, Phil would fly him out on his private jet to the Nike coaches clinic that he would have. And, Urban, he's a private jet kind of guy. All right, we're going to go to David Penterick has a question. Has Alabama peaked? Now, I think I know we've already talked ad nauseum about this. I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, as long as...
Yes, of course they have. They are not... This run cannot continue that they win, that every class leaves there with a national title. That cannot continue. But I've been saying that for about 5 or 6, 7, 8 years now. So, and I thought they peaked, and I thought Dabo had passed them by and kind of was knocking them down. And then Nick came back with a vengeance and, took care of Dabo. I think you can't sustain that. You can still be great and win a title every 10 years. You can't continue this. You know what I mean? And as I say that, they'll probably win it again this year, and I'll look stupid again.
That'd be great.
I mean, I don't know what what do you mean by peaked? Peaked as a national title contender? Heck no, because they're a national title contender today. Last year was a rebuilding year, and in that rebuilding year, they had the lead in the national championship game in the fourth quarter. That was a rebuilding year. So can they continue to win one every 3 or 4 years? No, you can't continue that. But it hasn't stopped yet.
No, it hasn't. And they are the most formidable team in the nation when it comes to someone that you don't want to be going against in recruiting.
You don't want to play them.
You don't want to see those guys, man.
I'll take UCLA.
I'll take give me some Purdue. Thanks. Oh, all right. Gut feeling. Do we see Jackson Smith and Jigba this week? And that's from Buckeye Backer 7.
Gosh, you have to think so, right?
I mean, I
haven't heard anything of him like bowing out and just like, I'm waiting for the draft. I have not heard one inkling of that. I'll tell you a guy I have heard that about. I haven't heard it anywhere else, but somebody I trust told me, look out for Michael Mayer at Notre Dame to say, this is not for me anymore.
Man.
Sorry, I've given you all I've got. This is a train wreck. It's a disaster. I'm getting ready for the draft. So watch for Michael Mayer to bow out and say, I've given you all I've got. I have nothing left to give to this train wreck.
That's always interesting because, he wears the C. He's a captain. And again, like, I know that the season ain't going the way you want it to go because they've lost to Stanford. And
he's been banged up.
Yeah.
So that's one to look for that I've been told.
Let's see. This is a good one from F-150. What's your biggest concern with the team right now?
Cornerbacks.
That's like I was going to say, sir.
Could they cover me with a cyst on my spine? Could they cover me? I don't know. Could they cover you? You know what I mean?
Hell no.
They played the worst passing teams in the history of football. They're playing these Newt Rockne teams, no receivers, no quarterbacks, but they're getting open. So, can they cover anyone? Remember Jim Johnson, the great D coordinator for the Eagles?
Oh, God,
Jimmy Johnson, Coach Reggie White and those guys. He said the number one thing you do in defense is you disrupt protection, but you protect the house, which means you bring 4, you drop 7, and you get both. He had Reggie White and Jerome Brown, so it's easier for him to say.
I was gonna say.
That's the goal. You know what I mean? Can Ohio State do that? They haven't really disrupted protection. They're not getting sacks, and they're not really covering well, and they're not playing anyone. So that's the only concern I have. I have no concerns offensively, where last year I thought they were too soft to be able to run the ball when they needed to with all those tackles out there. You need guards. This year, I think offensively, and I think the philosophy Ryan Day's kind of recognized that they were a little soft, a little Big 12-ish last year, and that's why he's running the heck out of mine. They're hammering people now off the line of scrimmage. Plus, they can still throw it as well as anyone. So offensively, I have no concerns. I think they're totally different than they were last year. Defensively, man, I think there's a lot of concerns there. And I like Knowles. I like Knowles a lot, over the Combs-Barnes thing. But, got to disrupt the protection. You got to protect the house. I'm not sure they can do either.
Yeah, I mean, of all the guys that you've been surprised by their performance this year, I mean, Denzel Burke's gonna be the top one for me. I'm just like, I mean, he was a preseason All Big Ten guy, and he's got to find it. Edgy for sure. This is a good one. How do you? And again, you can keep these short because I mean, this could be a whole podcast. How do you have us matching up with Georgia, Tennessee, Clemson, and or Bama? So you can start with Georgia. How are we matched up with Georgia? Quick.
Yeah, well, my call early in the year was Georgia to beat Ohio State in the championship game in a close one. Kind of sticking with that. I still think Georgia's really good. I know they had a little stretch here. My flashes,
Oh, yeah.
They ruined them. They had
Oh,
yeah. It took them a while to get back to reality after my flashes messed them up.
I know.
But I think Georgia's really good. And I think it's a great matchup with Ohio State. I don't know if it's a great matchup for Ohio State, but that'll be fun. The Bama one always scares me because, and I know people talk about those Bama receivers aren't any good. They didn't score 13 points the other day. They scored 50. You know what I mean? So
No.
come on. Bama, even those receivers, they may suck, as Ohio State fans think they do. You still covering them with Cam Brown and Denzel Burke. So that would scare me that game could be just what we saw the other day. Up and down the field. Nobody stops anyone, and then you got to get the ball last. So that would concern me with Ohio State playing Bama. Tennessee, I mean, I don't put Tennessee on the same level as Bama and Georgia. And I know they just beat Bama. God bless them. They had every single thing go their way. Crowd. Bama got off to a bad start, stuck 21-7, 20 penalties. Jahmyr Gibbs with a drop at the end of the game that cost them the game. Is Tennessee going to beat Bama in the SEC championship game on a neutral and beat Nick twice in 2 months? No, they're not. I don't think. If I had to choose for Ohio State, who would I want to play? I'd want to play Tennessee.
Oh God, yeah.
Give me Tennessee right now, man.
Yeah.
I'll spot them a 7-0 lead. I'd rather play Tennessee over Bama or Georgia.
Yeah. I mean, you can't bank on
any of the three. I mean, I think Ohio State would be a pretty good favorite over Tennessee, I think.
Oh, yeah.
In the other two, with Bama, I worry it's a shootout that whoever gets the ball last wins. With Georgia, Georgia, that D is so good. And I know everybody laughs at Stetson Bennett, but he's been pretty good this year. And those tight ends are so hard to match up with. And who are you matching up with them from the Ohio State side? So I see, but I think Ohio State can beat all three. Tennessee, I think Ohio State would beat, not easily, but they'd beat them.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun, man. I mean, that's why we love this stuff, But I'd worry right now about beating Penn State on the road. I think Ohio State's so much better than them, but we've seen when that lion starts roaring over there, But it's not at night this year, so that helps.
Yeah.
But take them one at a time. Enjoy it, man. Just enjoy the season.
Oh yeah.
Every week, when it's over, man. It's when the season ends in February or late January, man. It's a long time before the ball goes on the tee again. So enjoy every week. That time will come. We'll talk about it. Eventually it'll come.
I'm gonna have thrown with Georgia. Is that the best duo of tight ends you've ever seen on a college team?
It's actually a trio. They've got three.
Oh, I was thinking of the
unbelievable.
Yeah,
yeah. No, they got a third one too that's really good as well. So
who's the giant? Isn't that Gilbert?
Washington, isn't it?
Oh, you're probably right. I mean, the one guy that is just he's just
Gilbert,
gargantuan.
Yeah, he's like 6'8". But
Yeah.
Eric Gilbert is the 3 guy, and Eric Gilbert is one of the most talented young kids I've ever seen in my life. He came to a youth camp at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I looked at him and I thought he was a counselor, like from the NFL or something. And he was like 15 years old. Now he's had a lot of issues, a lot of problems off the field, but Eric Gilbert to be your number 3 guy, yeah, hello.
Well, I think he was the guy. No, you're right. Washington was the guy, because the guy that hurdled. Because again, like I've never seen anything like. Yeah, he wears 0. The guy that hurdled the guy at Oregon. That was like, I was like, holy cow! I was like, what lab? Because like you don't see those guys, in Columbus, public schools. Like those guys are from the South.
That Bowers kid is like the next Gronk to me. I mean, he is so athletic and so good. It's just a different matchup than what you see normally. You know what I mean? You really have to scheme for those guys. And then they can run the ball. They can start running downhill on you, and they're tough. You know what I mean? They're going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, they're really, really, really a physical program.
And once you get over that hump, I think it gives you something mentally that they've got now.
Yep.
They've got
all they've ever heard is that they never could get it done.
Can't get over the hump. Can't win the big one. Now they've put that to bed. So they're dangerous.
Yeah, I think that's, and honestly, that's like something I worry about with Michigan now, because Michigan, none of those kids ever beat Ohio State before. They'd always go into that game with dread because they lost so many times here. But then they finally got.
I just think that was such an aberration last year. I think they had every factor fell into place, and I look at Ohio State as a national team. I look at Ohio like the guy asked. It's legitimate to ask about beating Bama, beating Georgia, beating Tennessee. I don't think Michigan legitimately, they're not, you don't talk about them beating Georgia or beating Bama. No. They're not going to do it. They're not good enough. So I look at Ohio State as a national team. I look at Michigan as a good Big Ten team. All the conditions fell right for them last year. I don't see that happening this year. But,
and we saw them play Georgia in the Orange Bowl too, and it was
it was like Akron showing up. Yeah, no chance. Yeah. That score could have been so much worse. It was bad enough, but it could have been a lot worse. They just weren't on that class. Neither was Cincinnati. You know what I mean? They had great years. They deserved to be there, and you take a butt whipping, you get your parting gifts, and talk to you later.
You get the Northern Lamb badge unlocked.
Yep.
All right. Again, a couple more, and then we'll wrap this. Who has the advantage against Michigan? Our defensive line or Michigan's offensive line? Who do you give the advantage to at this point?
Well, I really like that Michigan O-line. I'll tell you that. I like them a lot. But I think the Ohio State D-line, I think they're better than what they were last year. And I think play the young guys, man. Play Tyleek and Michael Hall,
Sure.
But Jim Knowles knows more than I do. But I think they're more equipped to handle that Michigan running game this year than they were last year. They were soft last year, man. And Tommy Eichenberg he's a different human being this year than what he was last year. You think you're going to run the ball up the middle on Ohio State now with Eichenberg patrolling that area? Good luck. Good luck. I mean, Ohio State is built so much better to stop the run this year than they were last year. So that's a great matchup, though, because I love that Michigan O-line. Those guys are good. But, that's a great matchup to watch. The game within the game stuff that we love, that's perfect there. And whichever group dominates the other, you're probably going to see what the score is then. That's going to tell you your score.
Absolutely. I think that, the fact that Jack Sawyer gained 30 pounds and some of these guys they're heavier, they're stronger. But, again, none of that matters against Toledo and Arkansas State. I mean, it all comes down to, are we going to show up and stop that run? Because I think that the problem with the defense last year is I legitimately think some of these guys were too cool for school. Too cool for school. Because, I've heard Ryan Day say multiple times in press conferences this year that the guys are really flying to the ball. The guys are really running to the ball. Because one of my biggest criticisms is our guys didn't play hard. They didn't run to the ball. And so it's like, you're fine when you play Purdue and Indiana and those teams. But, if you don't run to the ball against Michigan, they're going to run for 400 yards against you, because you have to get those guys on the ground. And they did, exactly. Because that was the culture of the defense. Like guys were too cool. Guys didn't want to play hard. And, again, like when you, they were absolutely soft. Like absolutely. And again, I'm not trying to be a hater, but that Michigan game cost about 5 guys their jobs on that staff. It's like
tape in. It's not hating, it's reality. Put that tape and watch it again. It's not pretty.
Yeah.
When you can't get a running team to third down, then you're just getting ground up, and they got ground up. So I don't think it'll happen this year. I really don't.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, Edgy's got one more. Outside of the Bills, Chiefs, and Eagles, is there anybody in the NFL that you're eyeballing?
Man, that's a good threesome right there.
Yeah, I don't know who else you could
Nobody
even fit
outside
there.
that threesome that I see right now. No, I think he's nailed that one.
Yeah, I agree. Everyone else has some pretty big warts this year. The Rams stink. The Rams O-line is in bad shape.
The Rams barely they were in a battle with Carolina yesterday. That game was tied at the half, and it was close in the second half. And the Rams are fighting for their lives, and Carolina is tanking to get the first pick. They don't want to win. The Rams desperately need to win, and that game's tied in the third quarter. So,
yeah, it'll be interesting to see if CJ Stroud goes to Houston or Carolina. Because I'm telling you, like, the thing I was talking about on the board is I'm like, God bless CJ Stroud and some of these guys, but man, they go into situations that are so bad.
Yeah.
Like Justin Fields in Chicago.
Well, like I said, what if Mac Jones had been drafted by Chicago and Justin Fields had been drafted by New England? I mean, how would we think of those two guys today?
Oh God. I mean,
look at New England right now. New England just plugged in Bailey Zappi the other day. That guy looks good. He threw for 300 at the Browns yesterday. I mean, what if Justin Fields was there?
Oh, dude.
Justin Fields has more talent than Bailey Zappi. And I love, don't worry, be Zappy, as they say up there. It just depends where you land. It's so crucial, and you almost feel sorry for some of these guys. They get their money as the first overall pick. You definitely get your cash. But, man, you're sometimes stuck in such a horrible situation.
Well, it's like the Browns in '99 take Tim Couch. And again, Tim Couch, everyone says he's a bust. But again, like, he was playing with a bunch of practice squad guys. And, like, I was on practice squad, so I know the practice squad guys. So it's like, but when you have to make a team out of practice squad guys that are at the end of the roster, you're going to get killed. Like, the year before Peyton Manning got drafted by the Colts, and they already drafted Marvin Harrison before that. They had Marshall Faulk. Then they get Edgerrin after Marshall gets traded. Yeah. They had Tarek Glenn, who was a first-round pick at left tackle. So there's some infrastructure in place, and they go get Reggie Wayne. Tim Couch has started like Dennis Northcutt, Kevin Johnson, and he got killed. Like,
how many sacks was it that first year? 60?
Probably over 50, I bet, easily.
It was an unbelievable number. I mean, he got killed.
Well, like Derek Carr as a rookie for the Houston Texans was 76 sacks. So, it's like how you do your dissertation on JT running the ball 1,000 times and how his throwing percentage went down because he got in like 2,000 car wrecks and then you ask him to throw the football. And it's like, when you're getting sacked with these guys, because that's the thing, like with CJ, the thing I beg and plead for CJ to take off and scramble the way Pat Mahomes does. Like, you don't need to be a running back. You don't need to be running read option, but like,
take the 3 yards. Take the
3
yards that are there. And then get down or get out of bounds. I don't want him lowering his shoulder and taking
God, no. Just slide. Feet first, slide.
I agree with you. And I don't want the quarterback to be a running back. I don't want that. But yet, when there's open green grass in front of you, 3 yards, you've got to take them. So I agree with that. CJ, I don't want CJ to be JT Barrett and run between the guards. I don't want that. But man, when there's grass ahead of you,
God.
Take all the grass you can get and then get your butt down.
Yeah, and the thing is like he's gonna find that out next year when he's got when the starting left tackle is hurt and they got to bring up the practice squad guy to play left tackle against Von Miller or Joey Bosa or Myles Garrett. He gonna find out real quick that you better put on your track shoes, man, because like you're gonna get the pass rushers in the NFL are so good. Like when I went to the NFL, the biggest difference between playing in the slow, pacey white Big Ten was the defensive tackles. Oh my God. Like, I mean, I went against defensive tackles like Tommy Harris and Ndamukong Suh. And those guys, like, there aren't guys like that in the Big Ten. So the pocket's going to get collapsed, and the speed rushes are really, really fast and really, really good. And you don't have two All-American tackles blocking like you do now. Like, when he goes to the NFL, his tackles might not be as good as Paris and Dewan are. Because PG is going to be a top 10 pick, and Dewan's going to be second or third round picks. So it's like, you might have a practice squatter at right tackle and an seventh rounder at left tackle, and you'll be like, oh my God, it's like, I mean, because again, like,
they're so small. The rosters are smaller, so you don't have the depth you have at Alabama or Ohio State. You don't have that in the NFL. How many O linemen do you carry on game day?
8. You dress 7 on game day.
Right.
Yes, right. 7 guys dress. So it's like, if 2 O linemen get hurt, then they're going to a defensive. They're going to a defensive tackle saying, "Hey, we might have to put you in number 68 so you can finish this game out." But the whole roster only has 9, and then you usually have 1 or 2 on practice squad. So most teams have 10. So like, it just and if there's anybody good, they're going to get signed as free agent. They're going to be gone. So they're having for like a year or two, and that's just part of the gig. It's like Aaron Rodgers loses Corey Linsley, and like Tom Brady lost both of his guards this year. So Tampa Bay's interior is terrible compared to where it was when they won the Super Bowl. But yeah, it'll be interesting. All right, I'm going to end this. This is the last one from the 10:30. We already talked about this. Mateo and Wilson. Do we land both, one, or none? I'm going to go with both. What are you going to go with?
I'm going to go with one. I think they're getting Damon Wilson. I just think Mateo. I think those dudes on the West Coast will pull out every NIL stop there is imaginable. That hip hop music scene in LA can do some courting that, Ohio State can't do in Columbus. And then Uncle Phil, now you told me he's in his 80s. I thought he was in his 70s.
84.
And he wants to win that national title next year.
Oh, my God.
NIL is made for Phil. I mean, he was NIL before we ever heard those initials before. Yeah. So right now, I mean, to get that kind of pass rusher there, I think Uncle Phil might just lay out the greatest NIL deal in history. So we'll see. I mean, we got a long way to go to Mateo. So we don't, I think Damon Wilson and Keely are going to be announcing fairly soon. Mateo won't be. So we got time to dig into that. Right now, I'll say one with Damon Wilson, and then let Larry Johnson work his magic.
Yeah, and I think the Phil Knight thing is intriguing because he literally runs the collective Broad Street for Oregon Athletics. Like, it's literally like his collective, and he started that collective in 1998. I think he started. He did. Going.
The
Texas. Yeah, he had that funding for those Texas coaches to get those kids up there. Like, you randomly get some 5-star who dreams of going to Oregon to play football. I'm like, I don't know how that works, but again, like he's like I said, he's 84. He's given over $1 billion to the University of Oregon. They have facilities that are worth $500 million. So it's like, why would you not buy some players and put them in the facility? It's like, well, yeah. I mean, Bank, I couldn't imagine what you would do if you're worth $40 billion or whatever it is.
I mean, who wants to win more than Phil? And who's got more money than Phil? And he's got a lot to sell up there. The Landing's a heck of a coach. The facilities are outrageous. You can point to Kayvon Thibodeau. I mean, there's a lot to sell there. If I had to guess today, I'm going to say USC wins it. But, we got a long way to go with Mateo. And Ohio State can win. I'll leave with that. They definitely can win that one.
Absolutely. And I really think, according to Oracle, he's our insider on the expansion. Nobody has more expansion stuff than Oracle. They're going to the Big Ten. Them and Washington are the next two to go into the Big Ten. So it's like, I feel like Phil's going to pull out every stop to get them in the Big Ten. He doesn't want them to be left with the bastardized Pac-12 as their conference. And, I think that it's a good, it's going to be very interesting coming down through it. Well, Cap, you for a minute, my man. I appreciate you. Bank chat on Thursday. Alabama is not dead. I'm right there with you because I would not want to see the Crimson Tide. So
kill them. They don't kill themselves. You got to kill them.
Yeah.
They're not going out easy.
I love it, my man. Well, I appreciate you, Bank, as always. I'm going to wrap this thing up. We had the Bank killing it today. What a fantastic episode. Bill Greene bringing the heat as only he can. Appreciate you guys. This is a longer one, but we were off for the week, so we had a lot of content. So this is going to be a good one for you guys to watch. So thank you guys so much. If you enjoyed this, comment. Which recruit do you want to see Ohio State land before Sunny Day? Which DN do you think is the best of the trio that we've talked about? And what do you think of Alabama? Are they dead? Are they alive? Do you have any fear of them now that they've lost to the Tennessee Volunteers? So with that being said, as always, we thank you and appreciate you guys. Join BuckeyeScoop.com, the #1 website for Ohio State information. Appreciate you guys as always. So thank you, Buckeye Nation. You guys have a great day. Thank you, Scoop family. Go Bucks.